Are you really growing apart? Day One Journey, episode 1660. 1660. Let's go. In 6 episodes, it will be 1666, which is amazing. But let's go. Are you really growing apart? So, I think we all know this narrative or story, in the movies or in real life when, there's a couple and they kind of grow apart, They kind of say or think that they stopped loving each other. Well, it actually reminds me of the long but very powerful quote of Stephen Covey that talks about love the verb versus love the feeling, which says love the feeling is the fruit of love the verb. And in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or maybe an interview, I don't know, he said a person came to him to a session and actually asked him, me and my wife doesn't love each other anymore. And then he kind of, making things a bit shorter, he kind of told him, well, if you don't love her, so love her. So if the feeling isn't there, so love her. Because love is a verb, so you can do things. Yeah. So sometimes we kind of sit down and think and say like the love is not there. So different way to say it or different way to look at it is like we grew apart, as if you come back home, you're with your life partner, and it's as if they are strangers. So you kind of grew apart. You used to be good friends, but now you kind of grew apart. So for this angle, are you really growing apart? So this is the title of this video. So first of all, there's another quote that I find very helpful, which says, don't look where you fell, look where you slipped, So growing apart, this is not a one day, one night thing. It kind of happens. It's like a process. Now, so first of all, when did it start? It's not that you just become a stranger, So what was the journey? What was the process that led you to where you are right now, labeling what you're feeling right now as growing apart? And then I challenge myself when I think about it, challenge yourself when you're listening to this. Are you really growing apart? So now let's go back to the beginning of a relationship. And I'm focusing right now on a romantic relationship, but it can also be applicable to different relationships. But I think it's a bit mostly there with a romantic relationship and a life partnership, if you want to call it that way. So at the beginning, I think most of us experienced the butterflies, the falling in love stage, the fantasy stage, or whatever you want to call it. And I think it's very nice. I think it's very powerful. One time in my life, I was very young. I thought I couldn't feel this way, but but I did years after that, which I think is a very nice feeling, having these butterflies, this fantasy going on. But I think it's, as we grow older or more mature, I think it's very important to understand this is a fantasy. And I did share with you my opinions about that, I think a few weeks ago, a fantasy. You meet a person, there's a nice chemistry, there's attraction, they say what they say, maybe what you want to hear, you say maybe what they want to hear, you don't necessarily talk about deep things, but you kind of feel as though, this is nice. I don't think there's anything bad with it. I think it does say something, the fact that you have chemistry with someone, just a good feeling. So I do believe it's an actual chemistry. There's actually pro-hormones, there's something, I don't know. It's actually physically chemistry going on. Yeah. So I think it's actually important. Attraction, it's also there, with kind of physical, very biological, the kind of people have smell of their own body and so the stuff to this, yeah. I don't think we should ignore it. But I think we should call it what it is. We didn't fall in love. We felt the butterflies. We felt the attraction, chemistry. But do we really know them? Now, what sometimes happens is, and this is my kind of point or idea that I want you to consider. We don't necessarily grow apart. Maybe just the fantasy has faded. Yeah, just like that. So you didn't really know them. You didn't really get to know them for plenty of reasons. Okay, it can be you're not connected to yourself, or they are not connected to themselves, so you don't really know yourself. They don't really know themselves. So how could they be open with you when they are not open with themselves? One reason. Second reason, we have our fears, we have our worries, we don't want to open up. It's being vulnerable. It's a risk. If I tell you all my dreams and all my fears and all my, you can use it against me. Like this being an actual vulnerable. You can actually use these things against me and actually hurt me in the real world. Actually hurt me. I mean, not just a feeling, You can actually jeopardize things in my life. You can, I don't know. So it's actually being vulnerable physically, emotionally, and even business-wise. This is what I mean. Because if you know all my fears and stuff, you can actually, and all my secrets, you can actually do damage. So it's actually being vulnerable. So there can be plenty of reasons why we don't really know each other. So we did have the fantasy, but did we trick ourselves as if we know each other that deeply? So are we really growing apart, or maybe we didn't really know each other? Maybe we weren't really interested in other people as we thought maybe we were fantasizing not just about the person in front of us, maybe we were fantasizing about the idea of having a girlfriend, having a boyfriend, having a husband, having a life partner. And once we have it, we kind of like ticking the box, and kind of that's it. We don't invest in the relationship. We don't invest in actually learning, understanding things about our partner. So when we ask ourselves, when we feel growing apart years after that, there's some kind of an assumption that we kind of were together. Growing apart kind of assumes we were together in the much deeper sense of it. So did you really work together? They're in a deep relationship in which, a state that you can sit down, you look at the other person's eyes, and can actually know what's going on in their minds. In that sense, I can say on a personal level, I experienced this deep relationships, actually sitting in front of my partner, also friend. I kind of know what's going on in their minds. And I kind of know that they know what's going on in my mind. Yeah, because we were open, because we invested in the relationship, because we are, that now growing apart has come this kind of assumption. Yeah, like as if you were really together in the most deepest sense of it. This is what I challenge, see life as it is, see the relationship beyond just the fantasy of the beginning. And by the way, acknowledging having this fantasy is quite nice, kind of the butterflies and things like that. Once you actually understand the fantasy, understand the triggers, you can revive it, you can kind of recreate it, and people do it, that they met in this kind of place or this kind of hotel or whatever. They can recreate it, they can meet in the bar and act as if they don't know each other. They can actually get excited about this role play and stuff, that this can actually happen. So there's nothing wrong with fantasies, but I think it's something that can be very detrimental if we experience this fantasy and we trick ourselves as if this is reality. Okay? You have this amazing 4 days with the person, yeah, but you don't really know them, so you had an amazing day with them, a few days, amazing adventure, but what this has to do with spending the rest of your life with them. So you have these 5 days, then you have this aura and fantasy of the person. You can create an aura around them. You don't really know them fully. You're never with them in a challenging environment, when things don't go the way that you planned. You weren't there with them, so you don't really know them, at least in my opinion. Yeah. So you have this aura around them as if he's the perfect guy, she's the perfect girl. You have this. On top of that, you add the fantasy that you have about the relationship. Yeah. Oh, finally I'm in a relationship. I'm doing what my parents expect me to do. I have this. I can go to the party with my partner. Yeah, like this, you can get the fantasy, excited about the fantasy of being in a relationship, having you can do that. When that ends, you can maybe get excited about having a child or something like that. But at the end of the day, do you really know the person in front of you? You really went deep. Like, we can get caught up in many kind of fantasies. Yeah. And I think it's very important to kind of understand the different layers. This is the fantasy layer, which is the butterflies and everything, yeah? And there's another level. Who's the person in front of you? What would they do when they are pressed against the wall? How do they behave when things are difficult, yeah? What choice would they make? Comfort for them or freedom for you? Yeah, what choice would they make with the tough choices, yeah? What are the tough choices? There's some decisions in life. Would they move a country to be with you? Would they actually, where do they see themselves in 10 years? What excites them really? All these things. Are they really excited? There's so many questions that, so this is it, yeah? Are you really growing apart? Well, maybe ask yourself another question. Were you really together, beyond just the fantasy? It's an important question. Yeah, I think a few months ago, I had a conversation with a friend. She might be listening. And we were talking about a couple that she knew a few years ago, and she was kind of asking questions about what's going on right now. She gave me some details. I shared with her some of my opinions. But then I asked the question, what they met. How was it then? Was she super excited about him then, or was she kind of doing what her parents kind of expected her to do? This is super interesting for me, because this is for me the beginning, the kind of trick. Why did they jump there? Did they have these butterflies amazing in the beginning? Did they not? Did she kind of convince herself that this is the right thing, or this? Like, what happened in the beginning? All the journey. Because when you ask yourself, you think about friends, of course, yeah, they're married for a lot of years. Maybe they have difficulties right now with their marriage. So you can ask yourself what they can do right now to make the marriage work. Well, I also want to understand, how did it start? Maybe one part was there because he was forced by his parents. I don't know. This is the kind of the beginning. They ask themselves, are we growing apart? Well, I asked myself, were you really excited to begin with? Maybe the answer was no. I don't know. It might be quite sad. You might say, well, it can't help right now. Well, understanding where you are, where you started, I think can help. Why? Because you can make better decisions. Yeah? Because there's always a solution. There's always another option. Yeah? It's not just A or B. There's always a C option. And, this is it. Hope it was helpful. Quite long, but I did want to share everything. Have an amazing day. See you tomorrow.